Okay, so here's what's going on with EPA, and pardon me as I flip through my notes here to make sure I got it in front of me. Right now, there is a proposal coming from EPA. They have issued the Endangered Species Act work plan for pesticide regulations. There is a backlog of thousands of pesticides that are up for review, and they tend to get bogged down by a multitude of legal challenges. The reason pesticides come up for review is back in about would have been 1996, actually. It was right before I started out of college. There was something called the FQPA, the Food Quality Protection Act, which said that every time a pesticide is registered, it has to be assessed for its risk cup. And I want you to think about it like a teacup. And every time you add a use to it, you put it into that teacup. And the more uses you have, the fuller the cup gets. Well, as it reaches the top, you may have to take some uses out so it doesn't overflow its risk cup. Well, now what's going on is the EPA is saying we are going to continue to watch that risk cup because we continue to follow FQPA and we continue to re-register active ingredients for pesticides. But the hang-up for a lot of the times that the EPA gets sued comes from environmental groups that want to focus more on the Endangered Species Act, which is not enforced by the EPA. It's actually enforced by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So what this could mean is for you as a farmer, you're going to spray your soybeans in June. You would have to go back in January, like this month we were already past. You're going to need to look at the pesticides that you want to use, then look at the Environmental Species Act bulletins to see if there is a species ban in the county in which you plan to spray. This could be plant or animal. So, for instance, it could be the long-eared bat in Minnesota. In parts of North Dakota, it could be the fringed prairie orchid. I always have to say that a couple times to get it right. And so if those are in your county, then you would have to take extra buffers, special precautions, et cetera, if you're going to be spraying certain pesticides in those counties. But the problem is you have to go back 6 months in order to make those spraying decisions when you really don't know what's going to be happening until that crop is in the ground and you see what pests are the problem. So you can see where this is going to be a hard to manage situation for our farmers because this would add so much overreach and regulation that they would have to fight their way through. So that's currently what's going on.
And this is a proposal, correct, to do that?
Yes, this is their work plan for pesticide registrations. EPA has wanted to talk about this when they did their e-tour last summer, and I had the opportunity to visit with folks from the EPA. They mentioned this as a concern. They want to talk through that. Also, they lead into the discussion about buffers. And when I say buffer, that means if you have a field that goes up against a waterway, needing to leave an untreated space between your field and your waterway. There are also other items that show up that would need a buffer zone to them. Buffers will vary by product that you use. So it might be 140 feet for a herbicide. It might be 65 feet for a fungicide. And if you're mixing them in combination, you have to use the buffer that's most restrictive. But what then happens is you leave an untreated space in your field that the pests can thrive, and that makes it difficult to combat in the field outside the buffer zone, or those pests can move into other fields as well. So it makes it difficult for farmers to keep up with all the pests that could be going on, whether it's weeds, bugs, disease, etc.